biometrics are now a significant portion of the verifying of an identity online, because what we're doing now is we're not only asking you for a document that we can validate online as a good document, but we're making that document a source of truth. And then we're asking you for a selfie of yourself so we can biometrically match it with the document you've given us that we feel is real.
Hey, this is Aaron Price, the CEO of TechUnited New Jersey, and I'm here with a special guest, John Ahrens, the CEO of Veratad. John, thanks for joining us today.
And thanks for having me. This is quite an honor, and I appreciate you taking an interest in us.
Well, I would return that back at you. We really appreciate your long-time commitment to TechUnited New Jersey. So first, just on some basics, in pandemic times, from where are you joining us today? We're at our studio in Jersey City, New Jersey. Where are you set up?
I'm coming to you from the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border, right overlooking the beautiful Delaware River in my home here. And I'm actually broadcasting live from my perch that I've been in now since I think before this time last year, which is just my basement where I've set up shop. And but right on the border.
Doesn't seem like a terrible setup you have there.
No, it's going. So, it's all good.
For those who are unfamiliar, can you share the elevator pitch of Veratad and what the company is all about?
Yeah, well, let's see. Veratad's elevator pitch. Perhaps I'll give you just a general overview. I'm not so sure I'm that great at elevator pitches, but I'll give you the overview nonetheless, okay? Veratad is a global provider of age verification, identity verification, fraud prevention, and compliance solutions. And all of our verification solutions are designed to protect consumer privacy and protect personal private information of our clients. And our customers include companies small and large, really all over the world. They use our solutions to mitigate the risk of fraud, to meet with compliance requirements that abound these days, and to protect the identity and the privacy of their customers. So that's sort of the broad overview of the company. But just to sum it up, I'd say age verification, identity verification, fraud prevention, and compliance are the solutions we deliver, Aaron.
So can you share, why did you start this company?
So you might bring me back a good number of years to answer you on that question, Aaron. We actually began our journey in 2006 with this company. My partners and I were working on some payment platform opportunities. It was the business I was in at the time. I'd already progressed through my early career being I was a school music educator for a number of years in New York, and I wound up and found myself in sales and marketing, and then found myself in the insurance business for about 25 years, where we did risk management and consulting for the insurance business. And during the course of all of that insurance work we did, I got interested in technology. And after my partners and I sold our practice to a major U.S. bank, we decided we'd go into the payments business. And we actually were very fortunate enough to have constructed a platform that was adopted by Discover Card to do all of their back office EFT processing. And I got interested in payments, which led me into an opportunity where one of the prospects we were talking to needed age verification. And simultaneously, I'd gotten just serendipitously got a call from a colleague who said, I have a friend who is upstate New York. She's built this really interesting platform for the local Indian tribes who were selling cigarettes online, which is, of course, unless you're an Indian tribe, you don't do that in the US, right? But they wanted to verify the age, and she had built the shopping cart for them to do that. And just so happens that the client I was working on at the time, the prospect, was in need of an age verification. It was a New Jersey company that was a pretty big name you might know, doing online sale of cigars. And so I thought it was interesting. My partners and I decided to buy the assets of that little company and set up our shop. This was back in 2006, when it almost feels like today the internet might have been new. So we got interested in this business because we had a client who at the time had a need. But over time, we've really grown our interest in this vertical. It's been percolating a long time. Back in those days, it was very new to be verifying age or identity online. And we, originally, while just having an interest in a business opportunity, actually found ourselves really enamored by the possibilities of the future that we might realize by pursuing making this a better widget, so to speak. So
can you share how does the technology work? How does it actually, and I'm curious, not just how it works now, but how did it work in 2006? Yeah. And how does it work today?
Yeah, well, back in 2006, the whole world was a different place, right? And in our business, especially in technology, we all know that a year is sometimes a lifetime. So we are talking about 15 years ago. In the very earliest stages of verifying someone in a not present transaction, those early days relied very heavily on data. So we would have our clients via an API, for example, send us a query with some elements of a name, an address, a date of birth, a social security number. And then we, in turn, through our data relationships, could check that information against trusted and verified data sources like credit bureaus, voter records, those kinds of things. So early days, it was just really about checking data points against data points. Of course, way back in that period of time, even then, the banking community was struggling with online fraud. You had the internet banking guidance that came from FDIC back in the day, where they suggested you use KBA or knowledge-based authentication or out-of-wallet challenge questions that were multiple choice. So they drilled in on the data. They'd use the data to help sort of assure themselves that the person on the other end of the line was who they said they were. And so 2006, the new frontier, pretty much, but just the data only back in that day.
It's really fascinating. I mean, I wonder if there are ethical issues that come up now as we get into like facial recognition and some of the other biometrics, and I'm wondering how that's affected some of your business.
Yeah. And that's a very, very interesting point, because what it sort of does is point then to the evolution of where we've come since back in the day when all we did was verify data on an individual. Throughout, especially in the recent period of time, we've seen so many data breaches, Aaron. Like data is just it's breached, and there are so many so many dark web sites where you can find information just almost about everybody, date of birth, social security, all that information, very unfortunately, has found its way out into the hands of the bad guys. So I remember sort of the pivot point for me anyway, that I'm going back in time in my mind as you asked me the question, but the pivot point for me was when the industry began looking at the possibility of collecting an identity document online in lieu of just the data, right? So today, we still check data. We all do that. Veratad does that on a global basis. We have access to data on over 1.5 billion, 4.5 billion citizens worldwide.
Wow.
And so the data is still being used, and that includes all of the PEPs and the sanctions and OFAC information, terrorist watch lists, all of those things that you want to check for, in the financial services for AML or KYC, and in some of these other industries, their compliance requirements also are contemplated by the use of data. But that whole idea about a document.
For those who aren't sure, by the way, like me, what's KYC and AML?
Oh, wonderful for you to ask me that too, because these are sort of unfortunate acronyms that have found their way into the millions of acronyms we're all dealing with these days, right?
Right.
So KYC is know your customer. AML is anti-money laundering, and these are financial regulatory compliance requirements that are on banks and financial institutions. That basically is a worldwide thing now with anti-money laundering and fraud prevention, very big issue in financial services. So all of that data that you would check about whether or not a person is on a watch list or whether a person is a politically exposed person. I mentioned PEPs, that's the acronym for politically exposed person, or the OFAC, which is the Office of Foreign Asset Control. This is a U.S. Treasury regulatory framework that our financial institutions are making sure they're up to speed about. But technically speaking, everyone in business is supposed to make sure that they know their customer and make sure they're not on some list. So anyway, but you have these vast amounts of data that you could still get to, we call trusted and verified. But that pivot point on documents came at a time where, and I was baffled about it. I had a client who was doing advertising coupons online, and they were having a fraud problem. And somebody suggested, well, gee, why don't we just ask for the social security number? And I thought, like, I'm an old guy, but I'm not giving you my social security number for a coupon. Who's going to do that, right? Like nobody, right? Like, no, like everybody. Like today, you would just find people who are willing to give that information. There's, a greater sense of privacy, but at the same time, a greater sense of almost, I don't want to say a disregard, but a minimization of the concern that people have giving over that this generation seems to be okay with giving more information about themselves than mine. But when it came to the documents, I said to myself, I got to learn the lesson from the first time, because, I was completely convinced nobody'd give you a social, and at the prospect of me giving you my driver's license, which I wasn't, sure who would do that, but I had to, feel like I learned my lesson there and say, you know what, that's a thing to come. So Veratad embarked upon delivering solutions around document capture, validation, along with that, to answer your question the longest way I possibly could have answered it, by the way, on biometrics, to say that the biometrics are now a significant portion of the verifying of an identity online, because what we're doing now is we're not only asking you for a document that we can validate online as a good document, but we're making that document a source of truth. And then we're asking you for a selfie of yourself so we can biometrically match it with the document you've given us that we feel is real. So biometrics is playing a big role right now. And that's also having big implications for privacy and security, as you might imagine.
So, you've inspired a variety of follow-up questions, but here first, I think it's fascinating as a quick aside, that the point you brought up about culturally, I also wouldn't have thought people would share what they share online. They wouldn't share their social security number in exchange, a high risk item for a relatively low reward, which is a coupon code, right? But we're seeing people do that. I think this issue with Matt Gaetz, right? They are publicly sharing. All of my Venmo transactions are private. I still, for the life of me, can't understand why people want to share all the transactions that they're sharing with people, but they do. And here's a major issue that's come up because they just had all their transactions public. And I wonder, from your perspective, like, how careful are you, with password protection, and like how obsessed are you with privacy and control of this data and what you see what happens with it?
Yeah, obsessed is a good word for us, because I believe we are. There are a couple of potential pain points to answer your question in terms of the security and the attention to it. In terms of the data that we interact with, whether it's the document data or the digitization of a document, or it is the data itself, we're very big on all the standard things you might think to be big on: encryption, and all of the password protected, two-factor, out of band, all of that. But we've gone a big step further. Veratad is an ISO certified, 27001 certified for privacy and security. And our information security management program has been audited, tested, and is constantly being looked at both from the standpoint of its efficacy and reliability in terms of how our plans will match up with real world threat. So, but Veratad's very big on privacy, very big on security. When we do a transaction that requires personal information data, we've taken the position that we will not keep any personal sensitive information on an individual once the transaction is complete. So you run a transaction with us, you may be giving us a social and you may be giving us other data points of sensitive personal information, but Veratad is not storing that information. We use it on a one-time basis to check, and then we only keep a footprint of each of those transactions, like a date and time stamp and a reference number, transaction ID, that kind of stuff. So we're very, very focused and obsessed, if you will, on that word, but with privacy, with security, and all of the things that if you were a client of Veratad would make you feel very comfortable with how we manage that aspect of our business. Now, the other points of pain can come, and it's more related to the efficacy of service. Our clients have to find a balance, Aaron, in this world of their, being able to sort out the bad guys and still let in the good guys, right? So you've got a not present transaction. We're sending over data. A lot of that data could be dependent, and around the world, in every jurisdiction, we've got different access to data. We've got different rules around use of the data. So but I'll just speak to the U.S. for a moment. We have unbanked, underbanked communities of folks who want to transact online. If all you're looking for is data in credit bureaus, perhaps a younger person's never bought a car, maybe they've never owned a home, maybe we'll have a thin file on that individual. And so now the question is, do you just reject that transaction, or do you look for other ways? Of course, another way is taking an identity document and doing something with that as an alternate. But our clients are constantly faced with balancing the user experience and not having the friction be so high that it just turns the customers away. And they say, look, if it's going to be this hard to do business with you, I need to do business with someone else. So while you might imagine there are a lot of factors, right? I mean, you've got, as you mentioned earlier, if it's a high value item, perhaps folks are willing to put up a little more friction as opposed to a low, we like to call this smart friction. We've got a product we call Smart 2FA, Smart 2-Factor. What we want is smart friction. We want intelligent friction, friction that matches the risk. And so we work very closely with clients to help them identify the risk and then to make their decisions around what services and tools and technologies that we can deliver, whether they might be in tandem or standalone or in escalated fashion, so they get the proper outcome online with their transaction. By the way, all this is happening in seconds too, Aaron. So
right. So on that point, a couple of quick follow-ups. If I believe when I set up, I think a Coinbase account, which for me was a while ago, I did have to hold up my driver's license, which for me, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I did that. I believe I took the selfie. How difficult is it? Some people when they were younger had fake IDs for bars. Are people now getting fake IDs for online verification, and can Veratad pick those up?
Yeah, that is honestly, that's a great question that you're asking, because it speaks to the issue of whether or not there's a famous silver bullet to verify identity online, right? Like, is there a foolproof way for you to know when you've taken that ID document and that selfie? For sure. And here's what I want to say, and is this, that the bad guys can, they try to stay a step ahead, of course. The way that we look at it, all the security needs to be a layered approach. Just doing one thing only, if you have a very high degree of concern about your security, maybe what you want to do in addition to taking that document and doing a selfie, maybe you want to do the data check in addition, maybe you want to look at some other data points about mobile, maybe a 2-factor, maybe a ping to that individual if they've got that phone. But I would say this about the documents, we've gotten very, very good at finding these fake documents. Working with really excellent forensic technology that's sort of AI driven, where we're learning the font sizes, we're learning where the fonts belong, we're learning about holograms, we're learning about the various places where you might see something secret in the document, and making sure that the document is real. Because what you're about to do when you took that selfie is you're about to give them a document. If they deem it as a good document, now what they're using that for is sort of what the data used to be used for as a trusted source. It's standing in as the source of truth. Oh, look, I have a document. I feel like it's real. How do I know, though, it belongs to the person who's on the other end of the line that I cannot see? Send me a selfie. And you send me that selfie, and I'm going to match that up biometrically with the image that's on there, including some liveness tests that we do also to make sure that it's not just a picture of a picture, to show that, because a good fraudster makes a good license, puts his own picture on it, takes a selfie of himself or takes a picture of the person. There's lots of ways that I think that we're seeing the bad guys try to get around this, okay? But it's a very significant high bar to get past the data and the documents and a liveness and a selfie in terms of a good check on an identity online. So, we have a very high degree of confidence in our services that provide that sort of a check.
How easy is it for a business that's looking to implement the solution, let's say in this case, Veratad, how easy is it for them to implement this as a solution for their fraud concern?
Yeah. We see clients get up and running within a day or two using our API. Yeah. And our API is public. It's on our web at veratad.com. You'll see the API there. All of our services are spelled out in the API. And we do feel, though, that there are certain businesses that require some guidance and help with the implementation on their side in terms of the messaging to the clients, perhaps, or the way the services can be delivered and so on. So we do offer a very robust onboarding experience for the new customer who comes and wants to set up. We'll take the time to share the best practices and get to know your business and try to assist and come alongside you with how you bring this to the end user customer. But it really is, from our point of view, a fairly simple exercise for the end user to implement using our REST JSON API.
Would you say, the tech community is very familiar with credit card integrations? I'm thinking of things like Stripe, where within a matter of hours, you could be set up with a checkout process and be taking credit cards. Would you describe Veratad as almost that type of tool for verification and identity, where within, you said in approximately perhaps a day, they could have a similar level of verification built in based on these APIs so that they are that much less protected? Or excuse me, more protected?
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that it's as simple really as it gets. As long as you've got someone on your side who's familiar with with the coding, we are a very, very simple implementation. I would say anything that holds up an implementation of our service is all about the internal goings on of the client, not to do with the technology and getting it set up.
It's really fascinating. And before we wrap up, I'm curious, geographically, has being based in the New Jersey market been a strength? What would you want our community to know? Are you looking to hire? I'm assuming you're looking for clients. Like, what can people do to get involved if they're interested in learning more or getting involved with Veratad?
Well, look,
Veratad, sorry. No, Veratad. I keep going back and forth. I apologize.
No worries. Oh, well, listen, we have really benefited by being in this New York, New Jersey metro corridor. And I've been in business in this corridor for probably my whole adult life. And it's got a lot to offer because of its close proximity to the city in Manhattan and New York City. All of the easy way to get in and get out and travel. I mean, from that point of view, it's been great. We also find lots of great talent that we can call on in New Jersey and for technology. And so that's been very good for us as well. We're always interested if someone is interested in us to consider employment with with that in mind. I would say that new customers too, always looking to, to have an opportunity to meet with and sort of explore opportunities for new business here. But we've really had a great run in New Jersey. And by the way, being part of your organization as a member has been really great for us over the years. And so we much appreciate everything you're doing to help raise awareness of technology. Now it's worldwide, really. It's not just New Jersey. I was there when it was the New Jersey Technology Council. This TechUnited rebranding has been, I think, great. It seems great to us, and we appreciate your helping us to elevate our profile here in the state and around the country, around the world, really.
Likewise, we really appreciate your involvement. And I want to be clear for potential customers listening, because our interviews range in company size, and especially when we talk about security, I want just to give you a moment to share the strength. I know we talked about being in business for 15 years. Maybe you just want to mention a few of the clients if we're able to, and perhaps the size of the organization, because I want people to realize that we're not talking about an early stage startup here.
Yeah, no, look, we're a small organization, but I always like to say we're punching way above our weight. This is a company with all those years of experience and nearly zero turnover. Our original guys are still on the job with us here. We've got some good new talent that we brought in the last few years. So from a technology point of view, it's a very, very strong platform, mature, it's scalable, reliable, secure. That part of our business is, is really a big strength. Or the fact that we are GDPR compliant, we're CCPA compliant. We've got that ISO 27001 certification now that we've just secured. A lot of really big strengths for a company our size. And so clients can feel very, very confident that one of the big advantages they'll get with Veratad is not only those strengths, but the experience. So we've been doing this a long time, and our guys, it's a very deep bench. Our guys.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I look forward to talking more about this. I think it's such an interesting space, and we're thrilled to have you in as a member, and congratulations on all the success. 15 years of staying power is no joke. I thought it would be appropriate. I was trying to be stealth about this, but I dropped my phone in the process. But since you're in the business of supporting selfies are a big part of our in-person events. So I thought maybe we would do like the digital selfie. We're going to come over here. Give me a smile.
Well, I don't know. I can't see exactly what you're up to.
Well, you can't see me. That's right. So there we go. You can see it's going to be happening there. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Great. So normally our events, we do lots of in-person selfies, but I figured since, that's part of your verification process, we're going to stay on brand here.
Very good.
We also, are you a musician, John? I see a drum kit behind you. Is that what's happening after this interview? You taking a break?
You weren't supposed to see all of that. I think I mentioned that I was a music educator in my early career. My downstairs basement here serves as the studio, the office, the practice center, and I get my grandkids come down and they play some drums and my guitars, and we have a little jam session. So I wasn't sure you'd see that. I didn't think you would, but I guess you do. So
that's all right. We like the personality. In fact, we do a song. We're doing one for our upcoming awards, our Catalyst Awards in May. Maybe you'll jump in on that virtual performance with us.
I'll have to sit in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
So anyway, normally at these, also in person, we tend to end with the high five. So on the count of 3, we can high five the camera. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
boom. Good to see you, John E Ahrens, the CEO of Veratad. Really appreciate you joining us. If you're interested in learning more, check out veratad.com. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you again, guys. Take care.